Welcome back in on a Saturday morning. It's the Zach Gelb Show right here on CBS Sports Radio. We continue our NFL draft conversation. We're going to talk to the Giants beat writer for NJ.com, and that, of course, is Matt Lombardo, who's kind enough to join us right now for a few minutes. Matt, appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for the time, and how are you?
Zach, I'm great. We're looking at the NFL draft now less than a week away. All of the talk, all of the speculation, all of the mock drafts, it's leading up to Thursday night, one of the biggest nights in the NFL, one of the biggest nights in recent Giants franchise history.
And this is very exciting because I like when there's an unknown to the first 5 picks. It feels like, though, the Browns are going to take Sam Darnold at number 1. I know the Giants do like Darnold from everything you read. So then at number 2, the decision is, do you take a quarterback with the 37-year-old Eli Manning towards the end of his career, or do you go with the Penn State running back in Saquon Barkley? What do you feel like the Giants are going to do and why?
Yeah, Zach, everything I've heard from talking to people in the league, talking to people around the Giants, Sam Darnold is probably the quarterback that the Giants would take at number 2, but Dave Gettleman isn't inclined to take a quarterback just for the sake of taking a quarterback. He talked about this week that when you mess up a quarterback, you set your franchise back 5-10 years, and people get fired for that type of a mistake. And I look at it this way, Zach, that if the Giants believe that Sam Darnold is their guy and he's the franchise quarterback and he's there at number 2, you absolutely pull the trigger. But if the Browns take Darnold, I don't know how you go wrong with Saquon Barkley. He's a generational talent who can contribute as a pass catcher out of the backfield. He's an explosive runner. He's a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's great in pass protection. He's a very good leader in the locker room. He can be the face of the franchise for a decade. And if you're not able to get your quarterback, and if you don't feel comfortable with Josh Allen or Josh Rosen or Baker Mayfield, that they are the complete package of what you can build your franchise around, I don't think you can go wrong with taking the best prospect in the draft and rounding out your offense with Evan Ingram and Sterling Shepard and Odell Beckham Jr. And now all of a sudden you can spread some defenses out. You can move Barkley around. He's a matchup nightmare for opposing linebackers. And if Davis Webb turns out to be the successor of Eli Manning, he's in a perfect situation. And if you decide that next year you want to trade up and get a quarterback, which teams are now doing all the time, they're going to have an ideal offense and one of the most dynamic offenses in the league to walk into. So to me, if Darnold's not there, I got to believe that Saquon Barkley's the pick.
If Darnold's there, though, they do go with Darnold, right?
Yes.
And then when you look at the other quarterbacks, Rosen, Mayfield, and Allen, I know we're operating under the principle that they're going to take Barkley if Darnold is off the board. But is there a preference from people you talk to between Rosen, Mayfield, and Allen at this point?
Well, I think that I'm going to break them down, each of them. I think that Josh Rosen is the most pro-ready prospect, maybe even more pro-ready than Sam Darnold. And he said all the right things at the Combine. He sounded like a New York Giant, like a buttoned-up player ready to handle the New York market. I think that if they are taking a quarterback not named Sam Darnold and they feel that they have to get a quarterback, I think Rosen is someone they feel comfortable with, right? Baker Mayfield, to me, he's a clutch quarterback. You saw what he was able to do, in the college football season, winning the Heisman Trophy, getting to the Rose Bowl, came up short a little bit against Georgia. Clutch quarterback, a little bit of an attitude, a little bit of swagger. I don't know how that plays within the New York Giants organization. And Josh Allen, he's a guy that a lot of people are high on, and I can see why coaches in the league are enamored by that arm strength. But I just don't know, Zach, if you can coach accuracy when you have a guy that's just so wildly inconsistent. He has one of the strongest arms that we've seen in years, but he can't control it. And I don't know what good that is at the next level. So to me, if I'm ranking the quarterbacks not named Sam Darnold, I would go Rosen, Mayfield, and then Allen.
I know it takes 2 to tango, and I don't see the Browns trading the number 1 pick, but do the Giants like Sam Darnold so much that maybe they would make a call to the Browns to try to move up to 1?
I don't know, Zach, because you talked to Dave Gettleman this week, and he emphatically said that he is not going to dip into future drafts to move up in this year's draft. So he's not going to mortgage a 2019 first rounder and or a 2019 second rounder to move up one spot to get the quarterback. They have depleted draft capital this year. They don't go on the clock after round 5. They only have 6 total picks in this draft as it's comprised right now. If anything, I think the Giants might move back to 6 or move back to 7, still have their chance at one of Chubb, Quentin Nelson, or Saquon Barkley. But I just don't see them paying the price to move up to 1 because I think that they prefer to come away with a premier player and a blue chip prospect. And if you slide back too far, you're going to struggle to get that. And if you give up too many assets, you're not going to be able to build out your roster.
How likely is it that they do trade back? Because everyone, we get in that conversation. You take Barkley at 2 at the quarterback. How much of a chance do you give it that maybe they trade back coming up on Thursday night?
I wouldn't say that it's a guarantee that they won't trade back, but Dave Gettleman's never done it. And I don't think that he's looking to drop back further than 5 or 6. So do the Broncos come up? And if they're trying to trade up to get Saquon Barkley, then you might lose out the player that you have number 1 on your board. But you gain more draft capital. If you're moving back with the Colts a couple of spots back, are you still going to be able to get the guy who's at the top of your board? I think the price would absolutely have to be right, and it would have to include bare minimum a first-round pick in 2019. And like I said, even then, I think that the Giants are more inclined to stick to their board.
Talking to Matt Lombardo right now on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Let's get an Odell update. Odell, when you think about this one, I don't believe he's going anywhere. I believe he's going to be a Giant, and he's going to get a big payday with the Giants. But where are they at right now in those contract talks, and do you think they'll get one done before the season starts?
I think they'll ultimately get one done, Zach, and I think that you look at the Mike Evans contract as kind of a barometer. I think you look at somewhere around $93 to $95 million over 5 years. I think the Giants will be wise to give themselves an out clause somewhere around that 5th year. But the thing with Odell Beckham Jr. is, Zach, he's one of the more dynamic receivers in the NFL. He's 24 years old. You've seen what the impact that he has when healthy. They go to the playoffs. You look at the disaster that last season became after Beckham got hurt. And the issues with Odell Beckham Jr. aren't arrest issues. They're not domestic violence issues. They aren't criminal issues. They're pain in the neck issues. And if the Giants can feel comfortable moving forward with Odell Beckham Jr. and managing him, and perhaps his coaching staff tightening the leash around Odell Beckham Jr., then I think you don't have any qualms about paying him. And I know that there was some interest around the league in making a deal to trade for Odell Beckham Jr., but again, this is a 24-year-old talent who's one of the top 2 or 3 receivers in football. I don't think that you give that away, and I think that there's a much better chance that he winds up signing a deal sometime before the regular season begins.
And we know the Giants have said before that he needs to grow up. They couldn't connect that message through Jerry Reese, couldn't connect that message through Hall of Fame coach and Tom Coughlin, and then also Ben McAdoo. Now you have Pat Shurmur in. Now you have Dave Gettleman in, a new regime. Why will this regime be able to get the message through to Odell Beckham?
Because they'll sign Des Bryant. No, I'm kidding. Even though those 2 are boys, and I'd love to see what that locker room dynamic, how it plays out. And I think that actually,
be good for your career.
It would be great for my career, great for your career, great for the fans who enjoy the drama. But in all seriousness, I think that, if anybody's going to get through to Odell Beckham Jr., it's going to be looking in the mirror. It's going to be the satisfaction of the paycheck on the new deal. It's going to be the fear of God that's struck into him by the organization when they lay out what that contract is going to be and what they expect of him, and perhaps even the ramifications of if he acts out off the field that could, trigger an out clause. So I think that, it's going to have to be something that comes internally from Odell Beckham Jr. because, like you said, Ray Lewis, Chris Carter, these guys have been in Odell Beckham Jr.'s life, and it hasn't helped, him mature and get to the level that I think the Giants would like to see him at. So that's just going to have to be a constant decision that either he makes to improve and be a better leader within that locker room, or the Giants have to shrug their shoulders and say, you know what, that's just Odell being Odell.
You mentioned Des Bryant, and I know you mentioned him in jest, but is there a chance that Des Bryant ends up on the Giants?
I think there's a chance. I really do. And I think that the one hurdle was the $5.1 million contract that Brandon Marshall counted against the Caps this year. He's no longer here. They released him on Thursday. And again, you look at Odell Beckham Jr., you look at Des Bryant, they're very tight off the field. They have a great relationship. I've written about this last week after Des Bryant got hurt. They call each other the Scorpio brothers because their birthdays are 2 days apart. So, again, if you want to talk about building your team into a super offense, and if you want to bring in somebody that Odell Beckham Jr. clearly respects, even though you can cite the same off-the-field issues with Dez Bryant that you can with Odell Beckham Jr., I think that this makes sense. And I think that Dez would come in and be the good foot soldier because he's so angry at the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones that he would come in here, be a good teammate, be a good soldier, and try to get that revenge twice a year. So I don't know what the Giants can pay him, but I would not be surprised to see him wind up opposite Odell Beckham Jr.
That certainly would be something. Last one for my guy, Matt Lombardo from NJ.com. Now, you just recently started to cover the Giants. Last year you were covering the Eagles, a nice long run for NJ.com covering the Birds. So when you look at this landscape in the NFC East, how do you rank these four teams before the draft and how you feel about all four of these teams as we get ready to start to look to next season?
Yeah, Zach, I think right now it's the Eagles and everybody else in terms of the NFC. So I think they're the most complete team in the NFC. They have the best quarterback in the division. Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson and Jeffrey Lurie have done a really nice job building a roster that at least for the next 2 to 3 years seems to be primed for sustained success with Carson Wentz. So I put the Eagles at the top of the pecking order, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them run the table in the division. And I actually think the Giants have a chance to leapfrog into that catbird seat at number 2. There's a lot of talent on that offense. The defense is not going to be as bad as it was a year ago. James Betcher coming in here, moving to a 3-4. You bring in some linebackers with Morrow and Ogletree, and you move Olivier Vernon to outside linebacker, get him into that pure pass rushing mode. I think the Giants can be second. The Cowboys are a wild card because you depleted your receiving core. The offense seems to be resting on the shoulders of Ezekiel Elliott. You saw what happened when he's not on the field last year. Their offensive line is a shell of themselves. And I think the Redskins are primed to take a step back with Alex Smith because I don't think they have enough around him to maximize his skill set. So if I'm handicapping the NFC East before the draft, I go Eagles 1, Giants 2, Cowboys 3, and Washington 4.
Give him a read at NJ.com. Also give him a follow and send him a tweet. Matt Lombardo, PHL. That's my good friend Matt Lombardo joining us right here on CBS Sports Radio. We appreciate the time, Matt.
Zach, thanks for having me on.